everybody! Today the Bookworms are going to be reading Pinocchio. One day on his travels, Jiminy Cricket came to a small Italian village and entered a house where Geppetto the woodcarver lived. The kindly old man lived alone except for his cat Figaro and his goldfish Cleo. One afternoon, as he worked on a lifelike boy puppet, Geppetto thought to himself how much he would like to have a little boy of his own. "I'll call him Pinocchio," he said to Figaro as he finished off the puppet. That night, Geppetto looked out his bedroom window at the star-filled sky. When he saw the wishing star, he made a wish. "I wish that Pinocchio could be a real live boy," he said aloud. Later that night, the blue fairy appeared in the workshop. She told the puppet, "Pinocchio, I am going to turn you into a boy, but you will still be made of wood. If you prove that you are unselfish and can tell right from wrong, you will become a real live boy." With that, she told Jiminy Cricket that he must guide Pinocchio and teach him to tell right from wrong. Geppetto thought he was dreaming when he saw his dear Pinocchio alive. "Oh, thank you, wishing star!" he cried with joy. The next morning after breakfast, Geppetto sent Pinocchio off to school like all the other children, with his apple and schoolbook. But as Pinocchio walked through the village, two suspicious-looking characters tripped him up. "I'm J. Worthington, foul fellow," said the fox, "and this is my friend Gideon," he added, pointing to the cat. "You're so talented that you should be on stage. Come with us. We'll make you a star." They took Pinocchio to Stromboli, who was delighted to have this puppet without strings work for him. He thought gleefully of all the money he was going to make at his puppet theater. That night, Pinocchio made his debut as a stringless marionette. But Stromboli was a cruel man. After the show, he locked the poor puppet up in a cage. Pinocchio was frightened and miserable. Meanwhile, Jiminy Cricket, who had been following Pinocchio at a safe distance, was wondering how he had managed to do such a poor job of guiding him so far. Then the blue fairy appeared and said, "Pinocchio, you seem to have gotten off to a bad start." But Pinocchio made up lie after lie to excuse himself. The more he lied, the longer his nose grew. When Pinocchio realized this, he apologized. The blue fairy saw that he really was sorry, so she set him free. Jiminy knew that he must be extra careful now. Meanwhile, in a nearby tavern, Gideon J. Worthington, foul fellow, and a coachman were completing a deal. The fox and the cat had agreed to help find the coachman naughty boys who would be enticed to Pleasure Island. There they would misbehave, making donkeys of themselves. They would never return home as boys. No sooner had the conspirators stepped outside the tavern than who should walk by out Pinocchio. They grabbed him, and after pretending to take his pulse, they said he was much too sick to go home. Instead, they would take him to Pleasure Island for a bit of rest and relaxation. Pinocchio was handed over to the coachman. With a crack of the driver's whip, the stagecoach filled with boys started on its journey. By nightfall, a fairy had taken Pinocchio and his newfound friend Lampwick to Pleasure Island. In no time, the boys were gorging themselves on food and candies. In this land, there were no grown-ups to stop them. Meanwhile, Jiminy Cricket had been making his own investigations. He was shocked to find out that the boys would all turn into donkeys before daybreak and would then be put to work in the salt mines. Jiminy Cricket rushed back to warn Pinocchio of his fate. It was already too late for Lampwick as Jiminy spoke. He turned into a donkey before their very eyes. His scornful laughter became a loud hee-haw. Pinocchio was already sprouting ears and a tail. It was time to go, and quickly, Pinocchio and Jiminy started running as fast as they could. When they came to a cliff, they dived into the water, and the current carried them back to the mainland. By sunrise, the bedraggled pair had finally reached the shore. They sat in silence, wondering how they could make things up to Geppetto. Suddenly, they noticed a bottle floating in the water. Pinocchio reached for the bottle and pulled out a piece of paper. Jiminy Cricket began to read the message. "It's from Geppetto," Jiminy told Pinocchio. "He was on his way to find you when Monster the Whale swallowed his boat." "I am going to save my father from that nasty whale," cried Pinocchio, running toward the water. Jiminy Cricket shouted, "You can't search underwater! You're made of wood and you'll float." "Not with this stone weighing me down," replied Pinocchio, as he jumped into the water. All of a sudden, an enormous shadow covered the ocean floor, and they looked up to see Monstro above them. Pinocchio untied the stone and floated up toward the whale. Meanwhile, inside Monstro's cave-like belly, Geppetto and Figaro were fishing from the side of the boat. Geppetto was very unhappy, thinking that he would probably never escape from Monstro's stomach or see his little Pinocchio again. But at least he would not starve to death. The rumbling sound of the hungry whale was followed by a gush of water as its gigantic mouth opened to suck in a whole school of fish. Pinocchio was sucked in through Monstro's enormous jaws along with the fish. Imagine Geppetto's joy when he pulled in his net. There, among the squirming, wriggling fish, was his dear Pinocchio. Geppetto was confused by the change in Pinocchio's appearance, but there was no time to explain his donkey ears and tail. Minutes later, Pinocchio began breaking up pieces of furniture that were floating around the boat. "We'll start a fire," he explained. "Monstro will wake up and sneeze, and they will be thrown out of here." It was hard work, but after a while they managed to get a good fire burning. Monstro's stomach filled up with smoke, and he began to toss and turn. Inside, the captives quickly jumped onto a raft and began to paddle towards the whale's throat. Suddenly, Monstro let out an enormous sneeze that blew the raft out into the open sea. There, they were joined by Jiminy Cricket, who had almost given them up for lost. Although they were free, they were not out of danger. Monstro was furious, and when he saw the raft bobbing up ahead, he nose-dived under the waves. For an instant, it seemed as if Monstro had disappeared, but then the whale's giant flipper whipped up under the raft, tossing it into the air and smashing it to pieces. Pinocchio grabbed Geppetto, who was barely conscious, and pulled him up toward the shore. "Leave me! Save yourself!" the old man moaned. Finally, they were washed up on a beach. Regaining consciousness, Geppetto looked around to see if everyone was safe and saw Pinocchio lying face down in the water. The sad group stumbled back to the village where Pinocchio's lifeless body was laid on Geppetto's bed. The old man knelt beside him, sobbing. Suddenly, a brilliant blue light lit up the room. The blue fairy had arrived. She waved her magic wand and said, "Wake up, Pinocchio. You have proved you are a brave little boy. I shall reward you by giving you life." Suddenly, the lifeless wooden boy was transformed into a living child. "What's wrong, Papa?" asked Pinocchio. "Pinocchio, Pinocchio, you're alive!" cried Geppetto joyfully. "You're a real live boy." Figaro dived into Cleo's bowl to give her a big kiss, and Geppetto started singing and playing his accordion while Pinocchio danced. As Jiminy Cricket watched the happy scene, he said to himself, "Now I know that wishes can come true." That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoy. Make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more read-alongs. Until next time, bye!